The man in the wheelchair was silent as the train rolled into the station. Commuters rushed past him, barely noticing. A teenager nudged his friend and sneered, "Why's he even here?" But none of them knew who he really was. 2 hours later, that same boy would be on the floor, unable to breathe, and the man they ignored would save his life using nothing but shoelaces, an old ID badge, and one memory from Kandahar that never let him sleep. This wasn't about the past. This was about what never left him. Before we begin, tell us where you're watching from. And don't forget to like the video. The floor of the East Brook train station always smelled faintly of engine grease and old coffee. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a pale, flickering wash across a sea of commuters too busy to look up from their phones. At the far end of the platform, next to a vending machine that hadn't worked since last winter, sat a man in a wheelchair. He wore a dark windbreaker, beige cargo pants, and a hat with no logo, just the kind of generic cloth that drew no attention. A cardboard cup rested on the footplate of the chair, empty. He wasn't asking. Just there. People passed him without slowing, without seeing. A mother with 2 kids pulled them closer. A businessman gave a tight-lipped glance and pivoted mid-stride. One kid, maybe 15, walked by and muttered, but he faked the chair for sympathy. He didn't react, didn't look up, just stared down the tracks. Train inbound in 6 minutes. Across the station, a security guard leaned against the tiled wall, sipping a soda. "That guy creeps me out," he muttered to the cleaner mopping nearby. "Never talks. Just watches." The cleaner shrugged. "Maybe he's just tired." "Of what?" "Life." They laughed. And still, the man didn't move. 3 minutes before the train arrived, a scuffle broke out on the far side of the platform. A kid with a skateboard was yelling at another boy in a hoodie. Loud, messy shouting. A girl tried to step between them. One of the boys pushed her. Still, no one intervened. The man in the wheelchair slowly lifted his eyes. "Yo, you got a problem," one of the boys shouted at the other, his voice echoing. Then he shoved. Hard. The kid in the hoodie tripped, fell sideways, toward the edge of the platform. The crowd gasped. Someone screamed. And in that breathless moment, the man in the wheelchair moved. Fast. Too fast. His left arm snapped out like a whip, grabbing the hoodie midair. His other hand reached his wheel, spun it. With surprising strength, he pulled the kid back and down, onto the platform, just as the wind of the arriving train blasted past. People stared. Someone muttered, "No way." The man released the boy, nodded once, then rolled himself back to the wall. "No thanks." No words. But one man, standing near the vending machine, hadn't looked away. He watched everything, his face pale, his eyes wide. And he recognized the motion. That grab, that spin. The economy of force. Not civilian. Not even ex-police. That was trained. Military trained. But what kind of soldier ends up in a wheelchair, sipping silence and moving like that? He pulled out his phone and started searching the name he'd seen scratched into the side of the chair's frame. R. Cutler. News didn't travel fast in East Brook. Not real news, anyway. But by that afternoon, the clip had already made its rounds, grainy cell phone footage from a low angle, shaky and breathless. It showed a boy stumbling toward the train tracks, a blur of panic, then a man in a wheelchair snatching him back just seconds before impact. No name. No interviews. Just a caption, "Wheelchair man saves teen at East Brook Station." Some thought it was staged. Others zoomed in on the man's face, trying to match it with names from the shelter registry. But no one came up with anything solid. And the man himself? He never even glanced at the commotion. He rolled to the exit, hit the street, and disappeared down Lincoln Avenue like he had somewhere better to be than the center of a miracle. But for 2 people, the moment wouldn't fade. One was the boy he saved. The other was the man who saw too much. Sam Lerner had been the one to notice the name, R. Cutler, faintly etched into the metal bar under the wheelchair's frame. Not carved by a manufacturer. Scratched by hand. With purpose. He was a history teacher at East Brook High. Former National Guard. Not the kind to chase rumors. But that name. It nagged him. That grip. The way the man had moved. He'd seen it before, in the training yard, in the quick, brutal efficiency of instructors who never said where they'd served. Sam spent hours that night combing databases, military records, and public archives. Cutler was a common enough name. But a few filters in, wheelchair, veteran status, East Coast, and a handful of profiles surfaced. One stood out. Reuben Cutler. Age 74. No known next of kin. Former Army. Last listed address, East Brook Shelter, Room 9B. Sam stared at the screen, then clicked the next tab. The shelter had no phone line, no website, but it had an address. By 9 a.m. the next day, Sam stood outside a worn brick building with broken blinds and a busted intercom. A woman opened the door with a sigh. "You pressed that buzzer?" Sam nodded. "I'm looking for a resident. Reuben Cutler." She stared for a beat too long. "What's this about?" "I think he saved a kid's life yesterday." The woman exhaled. "So that's what all the fuss was." "Reporter's been sniffing around. Didn't know it was one of ours." "Can I talk to him?" "No one talks to Reuben," she said flatly. "He's not rude. Just gone. Up here." She tapped her temple. "Keeps to himself. Never sleeps indoors more than 3 nights in a row." "Why?" "PTSD, probably. Or guilt. Or something worse." Back at the train station, the teenager, the one who was saved, sat on the bench, hoodie tied around his face. His name was Marcus. 16. Smart, but angry. No father. A probation officer on speed dial. He hadn't said a word about what happened. Until now. To a local reporter, Marcus finally whispered, "I thought I was going to die." "What did he say to you?" "Nothing." "Nothing at all?" Marcus shook his head. "Just grabbed me. Pulled me back." "Then what?" Marcus blinked. His throat tightened. He looked at me like he'd seen worse. He swallowed. "Way worse. That same day, someone taped a note to the inside wall of the station. He's not a stranger. He's a shield. If this makes you angry, type respect in the comments section." In room 9B of the East Brook shelter, Reuben Cutler sat in silence. He'd seen the footage, recognized the boy, but he didn't watch it twice. He already knew what it looked like, because he'd lived it before. But last time, the boy didn't survive. And Reuben never forgave himself for that. He folded a piece of paper, carefully, precisely. Inside it, a single line written in block capital letters. "Civilians first. Always." He placed it inside his jacket, near his heart, then wheeled himself toward the door. The past was waking up, and the present wasn't ready. Room 9B didn't have a lock. It didn't need one. Reuben Cutler had lived there, on and off, for almost 6 years. The staff didn't ask where he went on the days he vanished. They just kept the cot made and the window cracked. The room had no photographs, no books, no signs of a past life, except the box. It sat in the corner. Metal. Military issue. Unlabeled. No one touched it. Some of the younger shelter residents joked about it, said it held secrets, or maybe a weapon. But one time, when a new guy tried to lift the lid, Reuben had rolled in from the hallway, silent as smoke, and said 3 words in a voice colder than steel. "Not yours, son." The lid stayed shut after that. This morning, Reuben opened it. He hadn't in years. Inside, a faded uniform, a leather notebook, a packet of letters tied in string. And near the bottom, beneath folded cloth and cracked leather, a strip of Velcro bearing a name and a blood type. Cutler, OPS. He stared at it for a long time, then closed the box. Not all the way. Just enough. Meanwhile, across town, Sam Lerner stood in the hallway outside East Brook High's faculty lounge, holding a printed document with trembling hands. It was an article, declassified in 2016. Title, Ghosts of Kandahar, The Men Who Stayed Behind. It listed 3 operatives, all presumed dead during a classified 2009 extraction mission. But one name stood out. Sergeant First Class Reuben Cutler, MIA, presumed Kia. Sam read it 3 times. Then again. He whispered to himself, "But he's not dead." The article detailed a failed civilian evac. Cutler had stayed behind to cover retreat. 3 lives were saved. He was never recovered. Until now. Until East Brook. Until Seat 9B. By noon, the shelter's director called Sam back. "Mr. Lerner, Reuben left this morning. Didn't check out. Didn't take anything. Just rolled out. Do you know where he went?" "No. But he left a note on the cot." Sam held his breath. What did it say? It said, "Check the news." That's it. And the news? By 1 p.m., the story had spread. Footage from the train station was now on national news, dubbed Miracle at East Brook. TV anchors speculated about the identity of the mysterious man. Twitter buzzed with theories. Some called him a guardian angel. One user posted a close-up screenshot from the footage. Zoomed in on Reuben's sleeve. The patch was torn, but barely visible in the fabric's worn edge, a half-moon curve. An insignia. Sam recognized it. Special Forces. That evening, the teenager, Marcus, returned to the station. Alone. He stood where he'd almost died. looked down at the tracks. He didn't cry, but he spoke quietly, as if to the wind. "Whoever you are, thanks." Then he pulled something from his hoodie pocket. A bracelet. Military style. Woven cord, with small stamped tags. He left it on the bench. Didn't explain. Just walked away. If you believe respect shouldn't wear out with time, type respect. Back in a part of town where traffic never reached, Reuben sat on a hill overlooking the freight yard. He watched the sunset. Hands still. Shoulders square. Like a soldier waiting for orders. He had no family. No medals. But somewhere out there, his name was being whispered again. And that wasn't the plan. By the time Sam Lerner reached the local VA office, the receptionist already had the look of someone bracing for more questions she couldn't answer. "I'm trying to confirm the identity of a man," Sam said. "He may be a missing veteran." She blinked. "Sir, we're not allowed to disclose. I'm not asking for anything confidential. Just a name." He handed over the printed article. "Reuben Cutler. It says he died in 2009. She read it, then frowned. "Where did you find this?" "Public archive. Declassified last year. But I saw him yesterday. In a wheelchair. Pulled a kid off a train track." She stood without a word, disappeared into a back office. 10 minutes passed. Then she returned, no expression, no comment, just a name scribbled on a yellow post-it note. "Contact, Lieutenant Colonel Mason R, DOD/P Recovery." "What's this mean?" Sam asked. The woman hesitated. "It means, if he's really who you say he is, someone very high up is going to want to know he's still breathing." At exactly 4:18 p.m., a black SUV rolled into the East Brook shelter parking lot. Not police. Not press. The plates were government-issued. 2 men stepped out, suits too crisp, expressions unreadable. One carried a tablet. The other carried a folder labeled simply, "Operation Razor Echo." They didn't knock. They walked straight in. But they were 10 hours too late. Reuben Cutler was already gone. Back in town, Marcus returned to school the next day and found something on his desk. A folded note. No name. No handwriting. Just a military field dressing packet taped to the front. He opened it. Inside, a single sentence. "You survived. So make it count." Marcus didn't show it to anyone. But he read it until the corners wore smooth. And something changed. That afternoon, he walked into the principal's office and asked to rejoin ROTC. Meanwhile, online forums were erupting. Someone had posted a side-by-side comparison, footage from the East Brook video and an old photo from a Special Forces reunion in 2006. In both, the same jawline. Same eyes. One sitting. One standing. Caption: "Did this man fake his death?" By nightfall, a reporter from a national outlet knocked on the shelter's front door. "Do you know Reuben Cutler?" he asked the director. She said nothing. Just closed the door. But the camera had already caught what was taped on the inside wall, just behind her. A strip of Velcro. Empty. That same evening, in a diner 2 towns over, an older man with a cane ordered black coffee and nothing else. When he paid, he slipped something into the tip jar. Not money. A military coin. Inscribed, "No one left behind." The waitress stared after him as he rolled out the door. She didn't recognize his face, but the way he moved. The way everyone moved around him. It left her quiet for a long time. Have you ever witnessed someone punished for an act of kindness? If so, share a small word of gratitude for them in the comments. Even just a name is enough to keep light in our lives. That night, Sam received a call. An unknown number. He answered. The voice on the other end was steady. Low. "Stop looking." Sam froze. "Who is this?" A pause. Then, "You saw a ghost. Let him rest." Click. Line went dead. Sam stared at the phone, then whispered to the dark. "Maybe he's a ghost. But ghosts don't save lives." The box arrived at Sam Lerner's house 2 days later. No return address. No postage. Just a plain cardboard parcel sitting neatly on his porch. He didn't open it right away. Something about the weight of it, the silence in the tape, made his fingers hesitate. When he finally sliced through the seal, he found a single item inside. A binder. Military green. Frayed at the edges. Labeled only, Kandahar, confirmed civilians. Sam sat down, opened to the first page, and began to read. There were names. Dozens. Men. Women. Children. Beside each, a time. A location. A note in steady, mechanical handwriting. Evac successful. Injury, tourniquet applied. Confirmed. Living. As of 2010, it wasn't a mission log. It was a memorial, but not for the dead, for the saved. Sam read through them, stunned. Each name was someone who'd made it out because someone like Cutler had stayed behind, had fought, had bled, had been left behind himself. At the bottom of the last page, one final line. If no one remembers them, I will. Sam closed the binder with shaking hands and understood. Reuben Cutler had never stopped fighting. He just changed what survival looked like. That night, the reporter who'd chased the story from the start posted a final message. She deleted all previous tweets, left one pinned at the top of her page. Sometimes the quietest man in the room is the one who carried the weight of everyone else's survival. Sometimes, silence is valor. Hashtag Seat 9B, hashtag Razor Echo, hashtag Still Alive. And then she went dark. Across East Brook, people began leaving small items at the train station bench where Reuben had last been seen. Not flowers, not flags, but practical things. A medical field kit, a child's drawing of a soldier with wings, a folded note that simply said, "My uncle never came back, but because of you, we did." By sunrise, the town had changed. No speeches, no declarations, but people moved differently, looked at each other longer, noticed who sat alone, and sat beside them. If you believe those who sacrificed for others deserve to be honored every day, subscribe to us, where we tell the stories that should have been appreciated long ago. Because quiet heroes never stop serving. Reuben watched it unfold from a safe distance. Not in person, but through a burner phone someone had left for him at a bus stop 2 counties over. The video showed the boy, Marcus, now standing in front of the ROTC class, reciting the code of conduct. Confident, balanced, changed. Reuben said nothing, just closed the phone, slipped it into his side pocket, and rolled on. The last town where he stayed didn't have a name. Just a gas station, a post office, and one long, empty road. He found a motel with no front desk, just keypads and keys. Checked into room 3. The woman cleaning the lobby asked if he needed help. He said, "No, thank you, ma'am." But his voice cracked. First time it had in years. In his room, he opened the drawer, removed a sheet of paper, and wrote, for the first time since 2009. "I'm still here. I still remember. And I'm not done yet." He folded it, put it back in the box, then sat by the window, watching, always watching. 3 weeks passed. The story of Reuben Cutler faded from headlines, but not from the town. At East Brook High, a new plaque appeared near the gymnasium. It didn't bear a face or a military branch, just a quote. "Some men fight wars. Others carry them home, so no one else has to." Below it, in honor of Seat 9B. Students asked teachers what it meant. Some said it was about courage. Others said it was about silence. But Marcus knew. He stood in front of the plaque every morning before school, never speaking a word. Far from town, Sam Lerner received a package at his desk. This time, it was smaller. No return address. No signature. Inside, a photo. 5 soldiers standing in front of a Chinook, helmets off, dirt on their faces. Young, exhausted, alive. The back read, Kandahar FB Echo, 2009. Left to right, Kessler, Mendez, O'Hara, Lynn. And then, scrawled at the edge of the paper in faint pencil, Cutler, photographer. He wasn't in the photo, because he'd been the one behind the lens. Sam scanned the image, hands trembling. Something clicked. 4 names had been confirmed MIA. Until last year. Now, 3 were accounted for. Except one. Lynn. Sam searched again. Cross-checked lists. Logs. Found a single line buried in a recovery report. Private Lynn survived extraction. Later died from complications during transport. Body never recovered. Report filed by SFC Cutler. There was no other witness. Only Reuben. At a federal archive center in D.C., a woman named Teresa Shaw, former analyst for Army Intel, reviewed a flagged request. She frowned, typed a note to herself, then picked up the phone. "Yeah, we've got a ripple. Kandahar era. Razor Echo file. Names resurfaced again." A pause. Reuben Cutler. Silence on the other end. Then, pull what's left. And if it's still warm, freeze it. Meanwhile, Reuben sat alone at a roadside diner 3 towns over. He drank black coffee and scribbled into a worn notebook. Not pages. Margins. He had no use for full sentences anymore. Just words. Red dust. Fob blackout. Lynn. not breathing. Blades too late. Kept his tag. He reached into his jacket, removed a single dog tag, held it between his fingers, didn't put it around his neck, didn't let it go. Back in East Brook, Marcus was invited to speak at a veterans assembly. He was nervous, sweating, fidgeting. But when he stepped to the mic, something in him straightened. I didn't know his name. Not at first, he began. But he knew mine. Not because we'd met, but because he saw me. He saw who I could be. He held up the bracelet. I wear this now because I lived. Because someone stayed silent and still saved me. That's who he was. A man who didn't need to be known to matter. What moment in your life did justice arrive late but sweet? The auditorium was quiet. Not a dry eye in the back rows. Among them sat a woman in a plain sweater, hands clasped tightly in her lap. She didn't applaud, didn't speak. But when Marcus walked by her on his way back to his seat, she touched his arm lightly. My brother was in Razor Echo, she whispered. Marcus stopped. She nodded once. His name was Lynn. That night, she lit a candle in her window. For the first time in 14 years. And finally, let herself believe that someone had been with him at the end. Someone who remembered. Reuben watched the broadcast from a motel room with peeling paint. He turned the volume low. Didn't blink once during Marcus's speech. At the end, he closed the notebook. Reached for the folded list beside him. Crossed off one name. Just one. Then whispered, "Sleep now, Lynn." The town of East Brook didn't hold parades. It wasn't that kind of place. The most celebration anyone got was a paper banner in the school hallway or a notice on the grocery store bulletin board. But on a chilly Thursday morning, something different happened. Every flag in town flew at half-mast. No one said why. No directive had gone out. No mayoral decree. And yet, from the town hall to the post office, from the train station to the school, every banner of red, white, and blue hung solemn and low. As if the town itself understood something had passed quietly through it, and might never come back. At the East Brook shelter, the cot in room 9B remained empty, untouched. But someone had left a small object on the pillow. A carved wooden star. Burned into the center, "You carried us." The director found it before sunrise. She placed it in the common room's display case, beside photos of past residents and faded awards. And for the first time in years, she added a nameplate. R. Cutler, in memory of the weight we'll never fully know. Across the country, in a secured military archive, a file was quietly moved. Top shelf. Sealed again. But before it vanished from access, a junior analyst named Vaughn pulled a copy of the summary. She read it twice, then whispered, "Why would someone fake their death and then keep serving?" Her supervisor, a gray-haired man with a citation ribbon on his lapel, didn't look up. "Because some missions don't end," he said quietly. "They just get quieter." At a small diner in upstate New York, a man sat in a booth beside a window, wheelchair tucked neatly against the table. Hands steady, eyes tired. He read a newspaper. The headline wasn't about him. It was about a local fire, a missing dog, a photo contest. He liked it that way. When the waitress brought his check, she paused. "You from around here?" she asked, pouring coffee. "No," he said softly. "Just passing through?" He nodded. She hesitated, then smiled. "Well, whatever road you came from, thank you for walking it." He gave a faint smile, tucked the folded check into his coat, and left a tip, $20, and a folded photo of 5 soldiers. The same photo from Kandahar. On the back, one word, all carried. If you're outraged, type shame in the comments to stand with those who sacrificed for our country. Meanwhile, back in East Brook, Marcus found something in his locker. No note, just a return bracelet. But this time, the tag had a second name etched into it. Lynn/Cutler. He stared at it for a long time, then fastened it on, and walked down the hallway without his hoodie up, head held high. Sam Lerner received one last envelope. Hand-delivered. Inside, a copy of the Kandahar evac roster. All names now checked off. Except one. The bottom. SFC Reuben Cutler, status, active, unconfirmed. Sam stared at the word active until it blurred, then picked up his pen and wrote in the margin. He may never clock out, but someone should stand watch for him now. That evening, at sunset, the town square held a gathering. Nothing official, just neighbors. They lit candles. Some brought photos. Others brought nothing but silence. The bench from the train station had been moved to the square. Painted, preserved, inscribed with a final line. Seat 9B, reserved for those who never stopped protecting. Marcus stood before it, hand on the rail. He whispered something no one heard. But Reuben, wherever he was, might have felt it. Because far from town, in another nameless motel, he looked up suddenly. Eyes sharp, jaw tight, and slowly, allowed himself to rest back in the chair. No notebook in hand. No mission today. Just stillness. Hard-earned. The motel clerk didn't ask questions. He rarely did. The man in the wheelchair came and went at odd hours, never left a mess, always paid cash, and never looked like someone who needed help, even if his legs didn't work the way they once did. But something about him lingered, like a storm you could feel long before the sky changed. On his final morning there, he left the key on the counter. And a box. Inside the box, a notebook, half filled with margins and names. A worn uniform patch, stitched and restitched along one edge. And a folded note. No forwarding address. No medals necessary. But if another boy ever finds himself alone on a train platform, tell him someone already stood there once and chose to stay. RC. That same day, Sam Lerner stood in front of his history class holding a slip of paper. He didn't say where it came from. Didn't explain the name printed at the bottom. He just read it aloud. Honor isn't loud. It's what a man does when no one sees. It's when he fights a war so someone else doesn't have to, and never asks to be remembered for it. The room was silent. Even the restless ones sat still. Then Marcus raised his hand and said, "Can I read something too?" Sam nodded. Marcus pulled out a notebook. Read one line. "My life didn't start the day I was born. It started the day someone saved me, and didn't even stay long enough to be thanked." Across town, the East Brook train station had a new feature. A second bench, just beside the platform's edge, with a brass plate mounted carefully to the slats. It read, "In honor of the one who watched." Some asked if it was a memorial. Others thought it was for a transit employee. But the locals knew, and the boy who once almost died never walked past it without touching the wood. Just once. Softly. Justice may delay, but it is never absent. Don't give up when you're doing what's right. When have you stood firm while the world stood against you? Share your story now. In Washington, the Department of Defense quietly closed a file marked Echo, active unconfirmed. It was never declared resolved, just archived, as if they knew the man behind that record would never surface again. Not because he was hiding, but because his job was done, and the next watch had begun. A year later, on Veterans Day, Marcus stood before the crowd at East Brook High. He wore his ROTC uniform, not for glory, for gratitude. "I never knew who he really was," he said. "I only knew what he did." Then he reached into his jacket, pulled out a bracelet, held it up. This belonged to a soldier who saved more lives than he ever spoke of. He carried a war so others didn't have to, and disappeared before the world remembered to say thank you. He paused, then added, "But we remember now, and we'll keep remembering, even if he never asks us to." In a small town on the edge of a forgotten highway, a mechanic pulled into his shop and noticed something on the bench outside. A military coin. Fresh. Polished. No inscription. Just the weight of something deeply earned. He picked it up, felt the chill in the metal, then looked around, half expecting to see someone watching. No one was there. Only the breeze. But in a parking lot just over the hill, a vent pulled away. Wheelchair locked in place inside. A shadow in the window. Eyes scanning the road ahead. No destination. No ceremony. Just another place. Another morning. Another stranger in need. And a man still willing to be the one who stays. If you like this story, please like and subscribe to the channel. Let YouTube promote stories of kindness.